2021 was a great year for video games, and even better if you decided to look beyond the traditional AAA landscape and take a look at some of the smaller stuff that flew a bit under the radar. There were loads of great games that released this year that unfortunately never quite got the attention that they deserve, which is a shame because some of them are among the best titles of the year. Here are 15 such games. Neo: The World Ends With You. The tragedy of this series is that it has never done as well as it deserves to. After a nearly decade-and-a-half long wait, fans of The World Ends With You finally got the sequel they deserved, and it was amazing across the board. Excellent battle system, great characters, fantastic soundtrack, an overwhelming amount of content, and a great flair for style. Unfortunately, the game underperformed pretty severely, which is a huge bummer because it is one of the highlights of the year. If you have Switch, PS4, or an EGS account on PC, definitely look into playing this one. The Artful Escape. The Artful Escape is a hell of an audio-visual experience, with some excellent music tying into gorgeous hyper-stylized visuals, and a great coming-of-age story that is deeply resonant. While ostensibly it's a platform, the gameplay side of things is light and not very challenging, and you're more in this for the journey that the game takes you on across some truly psychedelic landscapes. It's on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC, and also on Game Pass, so if you own those platforms, The Artful Escape cannot be recommended enough. RETURNAL. Housemarque's PS5 exclusive RETURNAL is their first AAA scale game ever, but you would never know it from how confidently assured and singular in its vision it is. It's a very well-designed roguelike, with brutal and crushing difficulty. At launch, it got a lot of negative attention because of Sony's pricing strategy and because of the deluge of bugs it has that, combined with the then missing ability to save, made it unnecessarily frustrating even for skilled players. In the months that have passed, those bugs have been largely fixed, the ability to save has been added, and it's available at moderate discounts reasonably frequently now. If you were ever going to play Returnal, now is the time. Psychonauts 2. Another one of those I can't believe this is happening sequels to a fan favorite, Psychonauts 2 is an excellent game all around, building on the incredible premise of the original title and fleshing it out by marrying it indelibly with its gameplay. It's delightfully well written and incredibly fun to play, with a cavalcade of accessibility options, and has a lot of meaningful things to say as well. At the time of its release, it was the highest rated game of the year as well, so it's perplexing it got so overlooked, but it did. If you haven't already, and if you have any interest in well-written games or 3D platformers, make sure to check Psychonauts 2 out. It's available on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PC, and PS4, with the former 3 platforms also getting it on Game Pass. AXIOM Verge 2. AXIOM Verge was one of the most critically acclaimed indie games near the dawn of the indie game era, so it makes sense its sequel was so anticipated. And yet, in spite of that anticipation and in spite of some great reviews, this remarkably well-designed game just got lost in the shuffle, which is a shame because it's got a surprisingly interesting story and some really interesting ideas, including making the bosses totally optional for the critical path progression, which it executes on remarkably well. All of that combined with some great accessibility options, lowering the barrier to entry, and it still flew totally under the radar. It's a shame. SCARLET NEXUS. Bandai Namco had one action RPG hit this year in Tales of Arise, but their other action RPG release, SCARLET NEXUS, totally bombed and disappeared without a trace. SCARLET NEXUS is nowhere near as good as Tales, or many other RPGs to be fair, with mind-numbingly trite writing, story, and characters, but the battle system is incredible and makes the whole thing worth it entirely on its own. If you like messing around with RPG combat and builds, SCARLET NEXUS is a game to look at. It's on Xbox One, Xbox Series, PS4, PS5, and PC. BUSTAFELLOWS. Visual novels are sadly niche by nature, and BUSTAFELLOWS, as an otame, is a niche within a niche. This means that it got overlooked by a whole lot of people, in spite of how great it is. Blending murder mystery and otame romance, it has some extremely arresting and strong writing, with fantastic characters, a great story, and remarkably coherent thematic consistency. If you're a fan of murder mysteries, visual novels, or just story-driven games, give this one a look. It's available on Switch and PC. Ultra Age. Ultra Age is a game that basically defies description, blending elements of character action hack and slash and action-adventure games and setting itself in a post-apocalyptic science fiction world. It's a remarkably interesting game to play and an intriguing story to follow. It has its fair share of stumbles, but when it succeeds, it really soars. It's available on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, so basically everyone has the ability to look into this one, which makes it that much more perplexing that it underperformed so badly. Seriously, it underperformed to such a degree that there are no non-curated user reviews for it on Steam. There's a demo available for it as well, so you can even give it a whirl before committing to it. HOA. The nature of indie game releases and the sheer volume of them means that, unfortunately, a lot of great ones get lost in the shuffle. We've already touched upon a few in this list, and unfortunately, I'm sure there will be more in the future, which brings me to HOA, a gorgeous, relaxing, serene puzzle platformer with beautiful hand-painted art and an amazing soundtrack that makes for a hell of an audiovisual experience. HOA is truly remarkable in how distinct and standout it is, and it's just such an incredibly relaxing game to play to. It's available on literally everything: Switch, PS4, Xbox Series, and PC, so give it a look when you get the chance to. Chicory: A Colorful Tale. When Chicory launched, it was one of the highest-rated games of the year, a distinction it managed to keep through the year even in the face of many subsequent releases. And yet, in spite of that, it went totally ignored. It's such a remarkable game with such a unique premise, playing as an anthropomorphic puppy and restoring color to the world, and it's such an amazing action-adventure RPG title with such a unique story, and some really emotional plot beats as well. Even most end-of-the-year awards are overlooking this remarkably beautiful and poignant game, which is a real shame because it truly is one of the best games of the year. It's available on PS4, PS5, and PC. If you have those platforms, I can't recommend this one enough. Death's Door. Seriously, I have no clue how Death's Door slipped under the radar to the extent that it did, but here we are. The game launched to great critical acclaim as an Xbox and PC exclusive earlier this year. But it doesn't seem to have made a lot of noise with players. Perhaps it not being on Game Pass factors in there. A later launch on Switch and PlayStation seems to have similarly gotten lost in the shuffle, and I don't understand why. It does have its rough edges, such as, especially, a brutally high difficulty curve that borders on being unfair by stuffing the screen with enemies and projectiles, but on the whole, even with its flaws, it's a great game. Hugely recommended, and as mentioned, it's available everywhere. Overboard. Overboard is a hugely replayable crime story, a visual novel that sees you trying to pull off the perfect crime and get away with it. The best thing about Overboard is how short it is. A single run can be as short as 45 minutes, and how replayable it is, because while a single run is short, you're encouraged to try again and again and again until you pull off the perfect heist. A great setup, fun gameplay, and amazing character interactions make this a really fun game. It's available on PC and Switch, so you should check it out if you own those systems. Life is Strange: True Colors. The original Life is Strange is a widely beloved and very successful game, which makes it so perplexing that its sequels haven't quite managed to find a similar level of uptake. True Colors, especially, channeling a lot of the spirit of the original game, from its protagonist to the power it gives her, to even having a similar mystery to hook players, should have resonated with a lot of people who love the original. And yet, here we are with it on this list. Hopefully True Colors manages to find success with players in the longer run. Hopefully it being on this list makes a lot of you check it out. It's on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PC, Switch, and even Stadia, so really you don't have any excuse not to. Bright Memory Infinite. Bright Memory is probably the most flawed game on this list, but its flaws do not preclude its merits, of which there are several, which are all the more notable when you consider that a lot of it was made by one person in his spare time. Blending fast-paced first-person shooting with equally fast-paced hack-and-slash character action, all mixed with a great premise for all this action and some excellent character designs, including the protagonist, Shelia. Have we sold you on it yet? Again, it does have its flaws. We're not going to say it doesn't, but it's definitely worth checking out for fans of shooters and action games. It's available on Xbox and PC. Shadow Tactics: AIKO'S Choice. Everything about Shadow Tactics just sounds so great. The setting, feudal Japan and the Edo period, gameplay, real-time stealth strategy, story, and characters, all of it. The original game was amazing, and AIKO'S Choice, which is a standalone expansion, very much lives up to it in terms of how great it ends up being. Honestly, just the prospect of a stealth game set up like a real-time strategy title is so intriguing, it's enough to sell me on the game by itself. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's available now on PC. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on GamingBolt.